Did you know that everybody has intuitive gifts? Whether you think you do or you don't, you do. It's just that we have to sometimes have a little help tapping into them or a little help deciphering how our unique intuitive gifts appear or work for us. A lot of people will say that psychic gifts aren't even a real thing. However, our human senses can only perceive so much of the world around us. There's only so many things that like light that our eyes can perceive. There's so many different sound frequencies that our hearing cannot register. So who's to say that there aren't these different energies or beings that we can connect to that just happen to be vibrating at a different light frequency than the tangible world around us? Who's to say that there aren't entities or beings or energies that are emitting sound frequencies that our human ears just cannot hear? And that's where our sixth sense, our intuitive gifts, come in hand. I believe that those are gifts or a sense that can tune into these frequencies and these sounds and these vibrations that our typical senses cannot perceive. Now, how does all of this relate to the paranormal and ghost hunting? Well, you can utilize your unique intuitive gifts while you are out ghost hunting or investigating the paranormal. And there's different ways that these can show up. So first we'll go into the different types of psychic gifts, kind of the more common ones, and how they may be showing up for you in your own life. And then how you can specifically utilize that gift for talking to ghosts or investigating the paranormal. In case you don't know who I am or you are new here, my name is Sharice Williams. I'm an author, paranormal investigator, and spiritual guide with over 20 years of experience. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today does come from my book, The Witch's Guide to Ghost Hunting. So if you want to dive even deeper into these topics, along with a lot more, you can check out my book. The first psychic gift that we're going to be talking about is clairvoyance. And this is one that I think when people think of psychic gifts, they think of clairvoyance. And it's probably because this is the easiest one to portray on TV and movies. You know, when the psychic or the person is actually seeing the spirit, you can put that up on the screen and the viewers can kind of relate to the energy. While people with clairvoyance do sometimes see things with their physical eyes, they oftentimes will see things in their mind's eye as well. So how do you know if clairvoyance may be your main gift or one of your strongest gifts? Well, it could be that you have an extremely vivid imagination. You can easily picture things in your mind. When somebody's describing a scene or something, or you're reading a book and they're describing a character, you can see these images very clearly in your mind. You may also have really, really vivid dreams that you remember easily. You could also be seeing like little glimmers around things, or maybe you see like little shadows darting around. Or you may even see auras. So auras can be like a glowing colored light around people, animals, plants. And it can also be even, it may not be colors, but you may see like the energy. So it could just be kind of like a little bit of like a fuzziness around them, or like when you see a road in the summer and there's kind of that like hazy above it, you may see that surrounding different people or objects, animals, things like that. So how can you strengthen your clairvoyance? There's a lot of different activities you can do, two of which would be dream journaling and guided meditations. There are so many guided meditations that you can watch on YouTube. Just type in one, put some headphones on, close your eyes and listen. A guided meditation is different than just kind of a regular meditation that's focusing on breathing or just music. A guided meditation is sort of a guided visualization. So a lot of the times they're guiding you down a path or through a building or something like that. Different ways to prompt you to visually experience things or to visually see things. Another way is to do dream journaling. So if you are clairvoyant, again, like I said, more than likely you have very vivid dreams. Keep a dream journal and write down the different symbols in your dreams or the things that really stand out to you. You don't have to remember every single nitty-gritty detail. But when you wake up, maybe you remember seeing a dolphin in your dream, and you remember the ocean and it was a really calm ocean, and you remember a rock that you picked up. Those are 3 symbols right there. Jot them down and immediately write down, what do those symbols mean to you? So don't reach for a dream interpretation book or Google or anything. What do those symbols that you recall from your dream or that stand out from your dream, what do those symbols mean to you specifically? And then you can also look up maybe what are the more traditional meanings. And this is important to keep in mind because with clairvoyance, a lot of the time, it's not like a perfectly clear picture that you see. A lot of the time it will be just like a symbol that you see in your mind. You may be investigating the paranormal and suddenly you see a dolphin in your mind and you're like, what the heck does that mean? But you remember from your dream journal that dolphins to you represent childhood and playfulness. And so that could be an indicator that maybe the spirit that you're connecting with is a child, or it's a childlike energy and it's a playful energy. Along with seeing symbols or different images in your mind, while investigating the paranormal, you could also be seeing colors, and kind of the same thing. What does a specific color mean to you? Perhaps the color gray reminds you of your grandfather. And so you could maybe correlate then that when you see the color gray in your mind's eye, that means that spirit is an older spirit. It's a gentleman, an old grandpa type energy. So I hope that this makes sense. It's kind of just taking the images and the things that you're seeing, like during the dreams, during guided meditations, or just in general, if you happen to get little intuitive flashes, and kind of assigning meaning to those symbols and those colors that you're seeing and relating that to investigating. Another intuitive gift is clairsentience, or being an empath. So a lot of times these terms are used interchangeably, and different people may have different definitions for being an empath versus being clairsentient. Now, to me, being an empath it goes above and beyond just having empathy. Just anybody can have empathy. Well, not anybody. Some people need to have a little more empathy. But empathy is just being able to kind of see the other person's perspective, putting yourself in their shoes. Whereas being an empath, you not only can put yourself in those other person's shoes, you literally feel like you're wearing their shoes. So if this person is upset, if you're hanging out with somebody and this person is upset, you will be feeling upset as well. You are literally, as an empath, feeling the emotions of those around you, living or dead. With being an empath, I have found that you may be able to pick up on these different feelings and these different emotions. And again, you will be embodying them. It's not necessarily always just like, oh, I feel that somebody in this space is really happy right now or really nervous. You yourself will begin to feel nervous. But with being an empath, it seems empaths don't always know why a person is feeling that way or why the spirit is feeling that way. Whereas somebody who may be clairsentient, they have all of the capabilities of being an empath. However, they also have the gift of kind of knowing why the person is feeling that way. So rather than just thinking, or feeling, okay, this person is feeling nervous, a clairsentient person may be like, okay, this person is feeling nervous and it's because they have a presentation coming up. So it's kind of like an added, it's almost, I kind of think of clairsentience a little bit as CLAcognizance, which we'll get into, and being an empath. It's kind of like a step between those two gifts. So how do you know if you are an empath or you have clairsentience? If your moods are easily fluctuated and influenced by those around you, or if you can walk into a room and immediately feel that maybe there are people arguing, and so then you kind of start to feel a little agitated and irritated, or if you're watching a movie or a commercial and the people are really sad, you start to feel sad, or if you're watching the news can be really difficult for you because you are literally feeling the sadness and the fear of these different news stories. You may physically feel the emotions as well. So not only might you feel sad, you may feel a heaviness in your chest, an aching in your heart. If you're feeling the nerves, the nervousness of somebody, you may feel the butterflies in your stomach. If somebody has an injured bone, like maybe they've hurt their leg, you might also feel pain in your leg. A good indicator for you on if you are getting an intuitive, if the feeling that you're feeling is intuitive versus just maybe it's something you yourself are feeling. A lot of the time you will get your intuitive hits and you'll know that, okay, this is my intuition by something physical. So when your intuition is kind of going off, that little bell is dinging, you may get a tingle down your spine. Your stomach may do kind of like a flip-flop. You may get goosebumps all over. These are good ways and indicators that, okay, it's time to pay attention because I'm tapping into something maybe a little more spiritual or paranormal here. My biggest tip for those of you that are empaths or clairsentient and you are investigating the paranormal or ghost hunting is to really keep your energy on point. So because being a clairsentient or an empath is almost like being an energetic sponge, you can drain your energy really quickly. And this goes for investigating the paranormal or just being out in the world, like going to the grocery store. Going to the grocery store is so exhausting for empaths. So while you want to utilize your gift of kind of tapping into the energy of the environment or the spirits and kind of sensing how they're feeling, you also want to make sure that you are keeping your energy grounded and your aura strong. And it does seem like, I mean, with a lot of intuitive gifts, people who go into a location and they're talking to spirits, it's like they have like a special little light above them that really kind of attracts spirits and entities. And whether they are meaning to or not, they can really kind of absorb some of your energy or kind of transfer their energy onto you. And again, it's very, very draining. So as an empath or a clairsentient, if you are going to be investigating the paranormal, make sure to kind of continually check in with your energy. Make sure that, okay, is this my energy? Do I need to kind of separate this spirit's energy from my own? Do I need to set up this boundary? Do I need to maybe leave the building for a moment and do some breaths and strengthen my aura? These are important things to do. The next gift we're going to talk about is clairaudience. This means clear hearing. So like I talked about at the beginning of the video, how our human ears can only hear like a small range of frequencies, right? So with clairaudience, you are able to hear these frequencies that the human ear, or the average human ear, cannot pick up on. So sort of like the clairvoyance, how they see an image in their mind, but then they may also see something outside of themselves as well. Clairaudience is a little similar. You may hear the psychic voice, the intuitive voice in your head, or you may literally hear like the disembodied voice and it's like outside of yourself. Now, a lot of people do talk to themselves in their head. I think we all kind of recently discovered, it was all over the internet a few years ago, how some people have no dialogue in their heads. They don't hear that little inner voice in their heads. And then some people do. And it baffles each group. Like I have such voices in my head. That sounds wrong. I have my normal voice in my head. I'm fine. But and so it's like, I don't understand how there could just be nothing, like silence in my head. It's like so weird to me. But so if you are clairaudient, more than likely you hear that inner voice of yourself. Now, where your normal inner voice differs from your clairaudience voice is the tone is usually a little bit different. If you're you can pick up a book, and this is a good way to determine like the difference between your clairaudience voice or just your normal voice in your head, is read a book and notice how the voice in your head sounds as you're reading the book. That's your voice. That's your inner voice. Whereas your intuitive voice may sound a little bit different. Like, my inner voice sounds like how I'm talking right now. There's inflections. I go up and I go down and I pronounce words a little differently. And it's a little more animated in my head. Whereas my intuitive voice in my head is a little more just matter of fact, monotone, straight. And that's how it comes across. Yours may come across a little bit differently, and that's why it's important to kind of like tune in and figure out the difference. I do also want to mention the anxiety voice here. I am somebody with anxiety, as are many of us, and that voice as well sounds different than just your normal inner voice or your psychic inner voice. I've found that the anxiety voice is a little more high-pitched. It speaks a little quicker. So I'll give a couple examples here. I'll say a sentence and I'll say it as my normal inner voice, my psychic inner voice, and then the anxiety inner voice. So, okay, you may not want to go down that way. You may not want to go down that way. That's my normal voice. The psychic voice may sound more like, you may not want to go down that way. And it's just matter of fact. The anxiety voice is, you may not want to go down that way. So there's slight differences, but the anxiety voice is usually a little bit higher pitched and it sounds anxious. If it's coming from your intuition or coming from spirit, from source, God, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be much more just monotone and to the point. At least that's how it shows up for me. It will never be anxiety inducing. So that's an important key to pay attention to. So how do you know if you have clairaudience as one of your main gifts? You're probably a good listener and you've been told by people that you're really good at kind of reading between the lines. You can hear what somebody's saying, but it's almost like you're hearing what they're not saying as well. You sometimes feel like you can tell what maybe an animal or a crystal or a plant is saying to you. If you've ever heard your name being called to you while you're falling asleep or waking up, those are usually common times for this to happen. You may have clairaudience. You may be sensitive to sounds. So your human ears, your physical ears may be very sensitive to sounds and sound frequencies. So like really loud music or sudden loud noises can be really jarring to you. Your ears tend to ring, pop, buzz, feel clogged maybe. These may be indicators as well that something intuitive is happening. Like this may be kind of an indicator of like, hey, pay attention, like you're tapping into something here. And then this one's kind of wild, and I've only had this happen to me with my children and my husband and like other people that are really close to me. You may sometimes think that you can hear somebody's thoughts. So you may be with somebody and you'll think that you just heard them say something and you'll be like, wait, what'd you say? And they'll be like, I didn't say anything. And you're like, I swear to God, I heard you say something. That could be a sign of clairaudience or telepathy. How can you strengthen your clairaudience? Listening. Go out into public, maybe go to a park, and you could try closing your eyes and listening to the different sounds. Try to kind of like pinpoint the individual sounds. So maybe you close your eyes and the first sound you hear is a bird. Try to tune out all of the other sounds and just focus on the bird. Then move on to a different sound. Maybe you hear people playing basketball. Tune into the sound of the ball hitting the pavement and really focus on that. And try isolating the different sounds. This will tune your ears and your mind and your psychic muscle to kind of pick up more easily on different sounds and different frequencies. You can also do this with music as well. Listen to a song and really kind of zero in on and pinpoint the different instruments and the different singers and things like that. You can even try imagining sounds. So like a clairvoyant person may kind of close their eyes and try to picture something in a meditation. Somebody with clairaudience can try to imagine the way something sounds. So think of a basketball hitting the pavement and really try to listen in your intuitive ear of what does a basketball sound like hitting the pavement, and see if you can listen to that. What does it sound like rain hitting the roof, and really try to tune into that. Clairaudience in ghost hunting and paranormal investigating. Have your ears on. So hopefully you have practiced your skills of, kind of zeroing in on these different sounds. You can utilize that technique in a haunted location as well. Go into the location and give yourself a moment to kind of tune in and listen to the sounds of the building. Listen to what does it sound like when people are walking around? What does it sound like when a door is shutting? Pay attention to these sounds, so then that way, if something out of the ordinary happens, you may be able to tune in a little bit better to it. Also, pay attention to any sounds that you may hear that others don't. You may hear like a whisper that somebody else didn't. You may hear a creaking of the floor that other people did not. So pay attention and note those things. And also, like I mentioned, the ringing in the ear or the buzzing or the kind of like clogged ear feeling. Pay attention to that at a haunted location. If that happens to you, it could be an indicator that maybe a spirit is trying to talk to you. So that would be an excellent time to start recording or pull out a digital recorder to do an EVP session. It could also just be that's how your intuition is letting you know that something's going on. So keep your eyes open as well, because something could be trying to manifest. Now let's talk about claircognizance. This one is a really difficult one to explain, I've found. This is one of my main psychic gifts, is claircognizance, and it means clear knowing. So if you have claircognizance, you just know things and you don't know how you know them. So how do you know if you have claircognizance? Well, a lot of the time this shows up as that gut feeling, right? It's that I just know. I have a gut feeling. That is claircognizance. You may find that these gut feelings are usually accurate. For example, you could have a gut feeling that you need to take a different road to get to work today. and then you find out on your lunch break that there was a bad accident on the road that you normally take. That could be a sign of claircognizance. You don't know how you knew that you should be taking another route. You just knew that you needed to be taking another route that day. You might interrupt people, not because you're trying to be rude, but it's almost like you know right before they're about to say what they're going to say, you know what they're going to say. And so you may already be forming a response to what they're about to say. And so before they can even get the full sentence out, you're already interjecting to respond to their sentence. You are probably very good at knowing if somebody is telling the truth or not. You just know if they're being honest. You might wake up in the middle of the night with random ideas or thoughts. You enjoy writing and reading, and also people may come to you for advice because you seem to just know what to say. With claircognizance, though, it's important to differentiate between your personal biases and the claircognizant messages that you're receiving. Example that I use in the book is you don't really like your friend's boyfriend. He's kind of annoying. You think she could do better. So he's never been your favorite person. Then one day your friend comes to you and she's looking for advice because she thinks her boyfriend is lying to her about something. And you're like, yep, he's lying. I know he is. I just know it. You need to take a moment and kind of like take a step back. Is this actually your claircognizance, your psychic gift letting you know that, yeah, something doesn't seem right? I think that he could possibly be lying to you. Or is it your personal feelings towards the boyfriend? You already don't like him, so you're already assuming that he's probably going to do something to mess up this relationship. So therefore, yes, he has to be lying, right? Not necessarily. So it's important to kind of be able to separate your personal feelings, thoughts, memories or associations with something and keep that separate from the intuitive feelings that you are receiving. Similar to the clairaudience of there's, your regular inner voice, there's your psychic inner voice, and then there is the anxiety inner voice. Claircognizance works kind of the same way, and you'll get more and more used to this the more you work with your claircognizance. But for example, if it's just a clear knowing and it's more of like a psychic knowing that you're receiving, it's going to be just kind of more matter of the fact, and you're going to be a little bit more just not as emotionally invested in the information, I have found. Sometimes there could be some emotions associated with it, especially if the information you're receiving is like sad or upsetting nature. It could make you feel a certain way, but it's not going to be as emotionally charged. We'll talk about the boyfriend example. For instance, when in that situation, when you're thinking, yep, he's lying, you feel like the fire. You're like, oh, like you're very emotionally invested in it. Whereas if it was more of the psychic knowing of, yes, he's lying, it's kind of, yeah, you may be a little upset because this guy's lying to your friend, but it's a little bit more of just this matter of fact, and it's a little less emotional. It's a little more detached. The kind of bummer thing with claircognizance is there's not always a way to prove it. With clairaudience, maybe a digital recorder picks up the ghost voice that you heard with your clairaudience. Clairvoyance, maybe the camera picks up a shadow figure that you saw with your psychic eye. With claircognizance, there's not always a way to be like, this is how I know, because I saw this, I felt this, I heard this. There's not always a way to prove it, and that can be kind of frustrating sometimes. But on an investigation, if you're ghost hunting or anything or connecting with spirits, trust that inner knowing, trust that gut feeling. Keep a little journal, write down the impressions that you're getting. Maybe you walk into a room and you just know that somebody died in this room. Somebody died in this room, and this room was used for storage. Make a note of that, and then you may be able to dig in and do some research or talk to the property owner or something and find out like what happened in this room. You may be pleasantly surprised. Well, not pleasantly, that sounds terrible. Pleasantly surprised to find out somebody died. Wow. You may be saddened to hear that somebody died in that room, but surprised to know that your intuition was correct. And our last two psychic gifts that we're going to get into today are Clairalience and Clairgustance. These ones are usually a little less mentioned than the previous ones, but they're really unique. So clairalience is clear smelling and clairgustance is clear tasting. If you've ever been on an investigation or you're connecting with a spirit and you smell roses all of a sudden, especially if other people can't smell it, but you smell these roses, that could be a sign of clairalience. The same with taste. Maybe you are on an investigation and suddenly you taste tobacco in your mouth. That could be a sign of clairgustance. Other signs that clairalience and clairgustance may be your psychic gifts are you are very sensitive to smells. So your just everyday human sense of smell is very strong. Like you can smell, the different spices in a dish and you can kind of like pinpoint the different spices. Like, oh, I'm smelling rosemary and garlic. And rather than it just smelling like one delicious dish, you can literally smell the different herbs that were used in the dish. And then when you taste that food, again, it's not just, oh, wow, this tastes good as a whole. You can literally taste, okay, I can taste the garlic, I can taste the rosemary, I can taste these different things. A way to know that your guides may be trying to get a hold of you, or kind of an indicator of, hey, something intuitive is happening right now, you suddenly get sneezing fits, or your nose may start running, or your nose may get really itchy or something like that. That could be an indicator that like, hey, pay attention to something because there's something spiritual or paranormal happening right now. Similarly, if you have clairgustance, your mouth may start watering or it could get really dry. Your throat may feel dry or a little scratchy. These could be indicators that like, hey, it's time to pay attention. If you're somebody who thinks of a meal that you love, it's your favorite food, and you can literally taste it when you're just thinking about it, that could be an indicator of clairgustance. So how can you utilize your gift of clairalience or clairgustance while investigating the paranormal or ghost hunting? You may start to find that the different tastes that you get in your mouth or the different smells that you receive are correlated to different spirits. For example, you may start to learn that when you get a sour taste in your mouth and your mouth gets dry, that's an indicator of a more unpleasant, negative ghost or entity that is around you. Whereas if you get the sense of something sweet in your mouth and maybe your mouth starts to water a little bit, maybe it's a sweet spirit that's around you. Perhaps whenever you get the scent of flowers, it means that there is a elderly female spirit or entity that's around you. This is where it's important to kind of keep note of the things that you're experiencing, not just while investigating the paranormal, but in your everyday life as well. Kind of with all the other psychic gifts that we've talked about, the clairvoyance, writing down what does different symbols mean to you personally and how does that relate to your ghost hunting, to the paranormal investigating. For you, if you get a certain taste in your mouth or you smell something, what does that relate to specifically for you? And there you go. I hope that you found this helpful. Comment down below. Let me know what psychic gifts you think that you have. You could have more than one. I have found that a lot of people have kind of one main one or one or two main psychic gifts that they utilize, and then they may kind of be able to tap into some of the other ones. Like for me, CLAcognizance and CLA Sentience or empath are mine for sure. But then I do get a lot of CLA Audience also, and a little bit of clairvoyance. But so yeah, let me know what you got down below. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you're interested in more, The Witch's Guide to Ghost Hunting. Thank you. Bye.